After a couple trades involving goalies around the NHL on Wednesday, it sure seems as though Ottawa is the landing spot for Linus Ullmark, should he choose to go there.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Thursday, June 20th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. On today's show, we're going to bring you all the latest on the goalie market around the NHL, whether the Bruins dodged a bullet by not sending Linus Ullmark to Los Angeles, some rumblings on Jake DeBrusk. Before we get started, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. And for the time being, I'm back on X, tweeting about hockey because, hey, it's fun. At Ian C. McLaren. Lifelong Boston Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years now. Hosting this podcast since 2019. For 5 years prior to that, I was a full-time news editor for The Score. And just a few minutes ago, I got a notification on my phone from The Score with a report that the Senators from Ottawa are now aggressively pursuing Linus Ullmark after a couple dominoes fell yesterday. The first being Jacob Markstrom traded by the Calgary Flames to the New Jersey Devils. And then later on yesterday, and we'll talk about this deal a bit more later on because there are some Bruins implications here. The Los Angeles Kings traded Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Washington Capitals in exchange for Darcy Kuemper. And Bruce Garriock of Post Media, this is from the Ottawa Citizen, wrote yesterday that the Senators have or had already stepped up their efforts to acquire Linus Ullmark from the Boston Bruins, and Ottawa may now be the last serious team in the mix. Markstrom to New Jersey, Kemper's gone, and knowing that there wasn't a fit with Calgary, Bruce Garriock writes, league sources say General Manager Steve Staios in Ottawa has been making a hard push to try to acquire Ullmark. Now, this isn't the first time the Senators have approached Boston about Ullmark's services. Apparently, they tried to get a deal done prior to the trade deadline. Why? Because Joonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg were the worst goalie tandem in the NHL last season. Goals against average, save percentage. Korpisalo was signed to a 5-year, $20 million contract. Last summer, he was supposed to help stabilize the club's net, but that was quite the opposite. And they know they have to improve their goaltending. They gave up 22 goals, as an example, on the first or second shot of the game last season. The Senators were behind the 8 ball 22 times. First or second shot of the game. That's insane. They just can't let that happen again. And so they're circling around, making a concerted effort to acquire Ullmark. Garriock writes, the Senators were unable to get a deal in place before the deadline after Staios and General Manager Don Sweeney had several discussions. They tried to dump Korpisalo onto the Bruins in exchange. That's not happening. The Bruins are not taking on 4 years, $16 million for his contract. But they could be willing to take on Anton Forsberg because he has only 1 year left at $2.75 million on his deal. But the indications are there's work to be done if the two sides are going to be able to make a deal. So here's where it gets juicy. PierreLuc writes, a quote, league executive believes the Senators would likely have to offer defenseman Jacob Markstrom along with a first-round pick and another selection to acquire Ullmark. Even then, he has a modified no-trade clause that has 15 teams on it, and it's not known if Ottawa is on that list. So, when I shared that on X yesterday, a lot of people said, Sweeney needs to take that and run. They're not, or PierreLuc's not saying the Senators have made that offer. He's saying a league executive believes the Senators would likely have to offer defenseman Jacob Markstrom along with a first-round pick and another selection to acquire Ullmark. And that's perhaps with the caveat that the Bruins take back Anton Forsberg. So the Senators would have to make it even sweeter for the Bruins to take that on. Yes, a deal involving Jacob Markstrom, a first-round pick, and another selection to acquire Ullmark. I would be all over that. Let's be honest. And here's the thing with the Ottawa Senators. They have 2 first-round picks here in 2024. One of them is the 7th overall pick. That's probably a tough ask. They likely wouldn't want to part ways with that selection, but they also have Boston's original draft pick this year, their original first-round pick. That was acquired from the Detroit Red Wings in a deal last offseason for Alex DeBrinket's signing rights. I believe this pick, it was originally part of the Tyler Bertuzzi trade. It was top 10 protected. The Bruins finished well outside of the bottom 10. So it's a first-round pick this season. It ends up being 25th overall. The Senators acquired that pick from Detroit along with Dominic Kubalik and Donovan Sebrango in exchange for Alex DeBrinket's signing rights last year. So would Ottawa be willing to part with that pick or reunite Boston with their original pick? Probably. You add in Jacob Markstrom, another pick, and Forsberg maybe, and the Bruins trade Linus Ullmark to Ottawa. This appears to be the scenario that is most likely to happen. Now, if you take Forsberg out of the equation, maybe there's not the first round pick in there, but I said yesterday even a Markstrom for Ullmark deal makes all kinds of sense, just straight up. You get 1 year of each player. Each team fills an area of need. Some people saying the Bruins don't need defensemen. You always need high-quality defensemen. He's got a pretty good cap hit for this season. And pair him with Charlie McAvoy, that could be pretty dynamic. So that's where we stand at the moment. The Senators aggressively pursuing Linus Ullmark after some dominoes fell yesterday. Jacob Markstrom to the Devils and Darcy Kuemper being sent to LA in exchange for Pierre-Luc Dubois. That trade has some Bruins implications, and we'll discuss how here as the podcast continues. All right, where I'm sitting, it is extremely hot. Summer has officially arrived, and it's the best time of the year to go sit outside, enjoy a few pops, and take in a Major League Baseball game. And Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. I've already used Game Time to attend one Toronto Blue Jays game this year. You can get killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and a low price guarantee through Game Time for your next Red Sox game. Red Sox who just swept the Blue Jays, of course. Now, I love the view from your seat. You get a panoramic view, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the ballpark. and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a seat in the same section and row for less. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms do apply, but just create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Game Time, last minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, all the latest news, analysis, opinions from across the Locked On Sports universe, ongoing coverage of the Celtics championship win, Stanley Cup final, Major League Baseball, and more, free on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, so remember around the trade deadline, there were reports that the Bruins had a deal on the table with the Los Angeles Kings that was ultimately nixed by Ullmark because he had a modified no trade clause where he could create a list of teams that he did not want to move to. Los Angeles apparently being one of them. And it's understandable. It's across the country. You don't want to do that during the season. Maybe that's a move you consider in the offseason because you have time to move, get your family settled, etc. Anyways, yesterday, out of the blue, the Kings pulled off a deal with the Washington Capitals that sent Pierre-Luc Dubois to the nation's capital in exchange for Darcy Kuemper. The trade was 1-for-1 and kind of a victory for the Los Angeles Kings, and perhaps a not preview, but flash at what that trade with the Bruins may have looked like. Basically, here's what happened. The Kings signed Dubois after acquiring him from the Winnipeg Jets for a pretty big package. And they signed him to an 8-year, $64 million-ish contract. After 1 year, that contract was aging pretty poorly. And in their pursuit of a goaltender and their desire to shed this contract, they pulled off this deal with the Capitals. Here what was the deal last year. June 27th, almost a year to the date, Dubois was traded by the Jets to the Kings for Alex Iafallo, Rasmus Kupari, Gabriel Velarde, and a 2024 second-round draft pick. Upon being traded, Dubois signed an 8-year, $68 million contract. After only one season of that contract, Dubois was traded to the Capitals for Darcy Kuemper, who I believe has 1, maybe 2 years remaining on his contract that will pay him 3 years remaining on his contract that will pay him $5.25 million. So not only do the Kings get a goalie who's won a Stanley Cup, even though he's 34 years of age, still got some gas left in the tank, they're able to shed that contract and can allocate those resources elsewhere with, for instance, Quentin Byfield needing a new deal, among others, and Arthur Kaliev, Victor Arvidsson. Anyways, in the end, it ends up being Darcy Kuemper for quite a package that is now resting in Winnipeg. But bigger picture, the Kings are able to get out of this deal because Dubois, I mean, he's got all the promise in the world. 3rd overall pick in 2016. He's a big body, 6 feet, 4 inches, 220 pounds, a left shot center. You'd think this guy would be tailor-made for NHL success, and he has had some decent seasons. 27 goals a couple times, 28 goals, career high 63 points with the Jets 2 seasons ago in 73 games. But if you're making 8-point-something million, you need to be averaging at least a point per game. This season, a full 82 games with the Kings, 16 goals, 24 assists for 40 points. Now, the Capitals are making a pretty big gamble here, and it's not completely out of left field. They do need some help down the middle now that Evgeny Kuznetsov is gone, Nick Backstrom gone, Dylan Strome is there, Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's a decent top 6 in terms of your center depth. Connor McMichael coming up, Hendrix Lapierre as well. The big picture there is they want to get Alex Ovechkin that goal record. And they're kind of not in a position to rebuild at this point. The hope is that Dubois can become the player that they hoped he would be, or that the Blue Jackets hoped he would be, the Jets hoped he would be, the Kings hoped he would be. You're seeing a trend here. The guy's only 25. He's now on his 4th NHL team. So if indeed this was the deal that was on the table, Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Bruins in exchange for Linus Ullmark, 1-for-1, very similar. That would have been an even bigger win for the Kings because Ullmark only has 1 year left on his contract, whereas Kuemper has 3. Dubois still has 7 years on his contract. Now, I get the Bruins are looking for a top center. They maybe believe that bring Dubois into, and we've seen it happen before. You bring a new guy into Boston. He's ingratiated into the culture. He's surrounded by Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, guys who put in the work, who buy into the culture, and they succeed. Kind of like Pavel Zacha did, coming from New Jersey as a highly touted pick back in 2015. You can see where the Bruins might have thought, hey, let's deal from an area of strength and take a gamble on this guy. But that is a very big gamble, and it could very well turn into a disaster for the Washington Capitals if this guy just, for whatever reason, is not working hard. He's shown flashes. Let's be clear. There's reasons why he was picked 3rd overall. He's shown flashes at the NHL level for all the teams that he's played with, but it's a huge red flag to be on your 4th team already here when you're only 25 years old. Could it have worked in Boston? I mean, maybe. We'll never know. We'll never know if that was actually the deal that was on the table, but perhaps a bullet dodged here by Don Sweeney, who remains intent on adding a center or 2, and rightfully so. We'll discuss how Jake DeBrusk heading up north could open the door for a couple centers to be acquired here in the offseason. We'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. All right, Boston Bruins fans, I want to take a moment to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of becoming a GM and managing your own NHL franchise? Do you think you can run the Bruins better than Don Sweeney? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the seasons, and lead your club to glory. Hire the right coaches, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency and the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Bruins fan, you know there's no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you're going to love this game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store, so make sure to check it out. Download the game by visiting hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, with the NHL draft set for 1 week away, free agency, 10, 11 days away, there's so much chatter out there as to who's interested in signing where, which team is interested in this player, what trades could be out there. And you have to take a lot of these reports with grains of salt, as I have mentioned many times on the podcast. Again, when I was working at the Score, I mentioned that notification I got earlier. that article dropped yesterday. I'm sure there was a discussion about whether, Bruce Garriock, is that the source you want to run with to aggregate a story, send out a notification? Do we want to wait until Elliot Friedman or Pierre LeBrun or Darren Dreger or Chris Johnston, Frank Saravelli maybe jumps on it? Those were all discussions that were had, and often a report would have to be corroborated by one of those guys or the teams itself or an agent to run with it and send out a notification. So all that to say, there is rumblings out there that there is mutual interest between Jake DeBrusk and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This one I'm pretty reluctant to entertain. We all saw Jake DeBrusk, struggle at times in Boston. I can only imagine what life would be like in the Toronto bubble under the microscope each and every night. I'm not sure that's a fit. I can, however, very much see Jake DeBrusk moving north and west and heading to Alberta. Perhaps not his hometown Oilers, but the Calgary Flames could be a perfect landing spot for him. It would give him a chance to move home, be closer to family, his partners out there. They're not really in position to win, but they'll have money to spend after dumping Jacob Markstrom's contract. And it could be a nice little landing spot for him, low pressure, whatever. Now, what I tweeted, X'd yesterday was I could see a situation where Ullmark's traded, DeBrusk isn't re-signed, so you have even more cap space to work with, and the Bruins go out and reunite a tandem that was pretty tight out in Calgary, two unrestricted free agents in Elias Lindholm and Sean Monahan. They were once a pretty dynamic duo for the Calgary Flames. Both play center. Monahan can shift to the wing as well. And perhaps one of the reasons why Lindholm is reluctant to re-up with the Canucks is because he wants to see if there's a possibility where the two can be reunited once again. Both were traded from their respective clubs within a couple days. January 31st, Lindholm was dealt to the Canucks. February 2nd, Monahan was sent from the Canadiens to the Winnipeg Jets. And, they both followed similar paths. Lindholm was selected 5th overall by the Hurricanes in 2013. Monahan went to Calgary one spot later. They both wear the same number, 23. Both had very good seasons as members of the Calgary Flames. And if you look back, Sean Monahan had some of the best years of his career playing with the Flames back in 2019, 82 points. He's had some injury issues and whatnot over the past several seasons, but had a bit of a resurgence this past year with Montreal and Winnipeg. 26 goals, 33 assists for 56 total points. I think that could be something that the Bruins look at. They can add some center depth, get two guys who are familiar with one another. It would essentially be flipping DeBrusk for those two guys. Not really, but you know what I mean. That's something I could see playing out, and I'm very interested to see if Don Sweeney is looking at one or, well, we know he's definitely interested in Lindholm. Be interesting to see if he's interested in Monahan as well as a partner there. You could have Monahan with Zacha, Pasternak, Lindholm with Marchand and Fabian Lysell. Who knows? Somebody up on the top line. The Bruins still do need a winger, some scoring up front. It's going to be a fascinating offseason. There's stuff going on elsewhere that has direct impact on the Bruins. Markstrom, Kuemper. We'll see what happens, but it certainly looks as though Ullmark to Ottawa for perhaps Chychrun, the 25th overall pick, and perhaps something else could be on the table and could happen here within the next couple of days. For whatever reason, the NHL has set the schedule so that the Stanley Cup final could end as late as Monday, the 24th. Draft set for Friday, the 28th. So teams getting a jump on things, and good for them because there's no need to wait until things are over. Just get her done. That's what we've done today. Hope you're all keeping cool. It is hotter than heck up here. Trying to stay cool. You may hear this fan in the background, but I needed it. Please do take care of yourselves. Stay hydrated. We'll be back tomorrow to bring you all the latest on the black and gold here on Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Take care, friends.